I'm being blamed for my ex-best friend attempting to take her own life, even though she's the one who hooked up with my boyfriend and threw away our 16 years of friendship. My ex-best friend attempted to take her own life, and I don't care. I haven't reached out. She slept with my boyfriend behind my back. We're both 20F, and we've been friends since reception, around 4 to 5 years old. It's a UK thing. She was my sister, my rock. We stood by each other through everything. When my parents divorced, she was there to offer a shoulder for me to cry on. When her grandmother died, I was there keeping her afloat. Throughout high school, I had been dating my boyfriend, 21M, for about 3 years. We started dating in 6th form, a version of UK college. He was my first serious relationship. I introduced him to my family. He was many of my firsts. He was sweet, a little awkward being a gamer guy, but he treated me to date nights and always made me feel special. Maybe this is me being young and dumb, but I thought I'd marry this guy someday. This was something I told my best friend. Well, about a month ago, while my boyfriend was in the shower, I saw a text notification pop up on his phone. We look at each other's notifications all the time, so I grabbed his phone to see it. It was from her, asking if they were still on for tonight and if she should wear his favorite dress. He told me he was hanging out with friends and going drinking. Him going drinking with friends wasn't unusual, so I never thought anything of it. But in hindsight, I wonder how much of him going out was actually with friends and how much of it was with her. I saved screenshots of their conversations and sent them to myself. I showed him the messages when he came out of the bathroom and demanded he explain himself. I couldn't contain how upset, angry, and hurt I was. An argument ensued where I told him he was disgusting, and I left his place. Shortly after arriving home, I started getting bombarded with calls and texts from my best friend. I answered none of her calls. I couldn't stomach hearing her voice. Her texts ranged from saying she never meant to hurt me and that my boyfriend hit on her first, to saying it didn't mean anything. Then it got angry. She said I should hear her out. If I was a real friend, I would take her calls. She called me petty and childish for not listening to her side. Then she flipped back to sad, saying I was her closest friend in the world and that she didn't want to lose me. My boyfriend was strangely quiet during this time. After a few days, I got myself together enough to send them both messages. Maybe it was cowardly, but I didn't have the strength to call them. I told my now ex-boyfriend that we were done and that I wouldn't give cheaters any chances with me. He responded by trying to call me, but after the 3rd or 4th attempt, he gave up. He sent me a final message saying it wasn't that big of a deal, that they just fooled around, but agreed he didn't want to date me anymore. My ex-best friend was more persistent. After I told her I wanted nothing to do with her, she kept messaging and calling me every single day. She demanded we talk, demanded we resolve this, and even demanded I keep quiet about everything that happened. She claimed she had stopped seeing him. Then, she started sending messages saying she would take her own life if I didn't talk to her. It was really messed up. I ended up confiding in a mutual friend about what was going on because I was seriously beginning to wonder if I was being too harsh. This friend reassured me that my feelings were justified. However, I wasn't expecting this friend to spread around what had happened. My boyfriend was strangely quiet during this time. After a few days, I got myself together enough to send them both messages. Maybe it was cowardly, but I didn't have the strength to call them. I told my now ex-boyfriend that we were done and that I wouldn't give cheaters any chances with me. He responded by trying to call me, but after the 3rd or 4th attempt, he gave up. He sent me a final message saying it wasn't that big of a deal, that they had just fooled around, but he agreed that he didn't want to date me anymore. My ex-best friend was more persistent. After I told her I wanted nothing to do with her, day after day, I got messages and calls from her. She was demanding to talk, demanding that we resolve things, demanding that I not tell anyone what happened. She claimed she had stopped seeing him. Then she started sending me really messed up messages, saying she would take her own life if I didn't talk to her. I ended up confiding in a mutual friend about what was going on because I was seriously beginning to wonder if I was being a horrible person. This friend reassured me that my feelings were justified. However, I wasn't expecting this friend to spread what had happened. The gossip spread like wildfire. A few days ago, my ex-best friend tried to take her own life. I said nothing. I haven't visited her in the hospital. I haven't sent any messages to her family. Now, her older sister keeps messaging me, telling me I'm a heartless person for leaving her at her lowest. She says I should have tried to prevent it, that everyone makes mistakes, and that her sister didn't intentionally hurt me. Maybe it does make me a heartless person, but I don't care. I'm relieved she survived, but I'll never forgive her. I'll never forgive her betrayal. She destroyed our friendship when she slept with my boyfriend. Commenter. Good. Don't contact her or her family. That's done for. You're not responsible for her mental health. And make better friends, not gossiping ones like the friend who told everyone. Just cut them off. If your family tries to pressure you to be friends with her, warn them that you're not above going low contact with them. Block them all as well. Ops response. Unfortunately, I don't think the friend I confided in had intended for things to escalate so much. She really helped me understand that I wasn't being a terrible person for not giving my ex-best friend a second chance. She cheered me up and made me feel better, but she ended up telling the rest of our friend group, and after that, it was like Pandora's box had been opened. I've blocked my ex and my ex-best friend. I've also blocked her sister, and it's looking like I'll need to block one of her cousins too. This makes me a little sad because I was always so close with her cousins. My dad agrees with me 100% and told me I'm doing the right thing. When I told my mom, I could tell she was disappointed. She tried suggesting that I talk to my ex-best friend, but I shut that down really quickly, and she backed off. Update, 1 month later. Hey again. It's been a while. First, I want to thank everyone for all their comments and support. In hindsight, I now realize I wasn't being a horrible person. But in the moment, when I was being bombarded by texts and calls from her family, it's hard not to let those thoughts mess with your head. I didn't know if I was going to post an update, but some things have happened, so this might get a little long. Sorry. Giving fake names for privacy, my ex-best friend is Nikki. Her older sister is Tammy. My ex-boyfriend is Josh. I'll name anyone relevant as I go. So, I mentioned in a comment that my mom wanted to speak to me later that day. I had a few replies warning me that she would try to pressure me into forgiving Nikki, and they were right. She came over to my dad's that evening and wanted a private conversation. She asked if I'd spoken to Nikki yet. I said no. She asked if I was going to. I said no. I was trying to be as firm as possible because I knew what she was about to do. She asked, "Don't you think you should?" My response was, "No, I don't see why I should." I sent her a final message almost a month ago. This is where things began to really go south in the conversation. "Mom, she's in the hospital right now. She needs all the support she can get. You're meant to be her friend." Me, really? I'm meant to be her friend after she slept with Josh behind my back? I didn't say anything about her because I didn't want to talk about her. "Mom, are you really going to hold on to a silly grudge? I understand she hurt you, but she's hurting so much more right now." Me, she's hurting? Mom, yes, you both are. I raised you to be a kind, forgiving person. Why can't you forgive her? Me, what, like how Dad should have forgiven you? This wasn't my finest moment. I hadn't brought it up before because it wasn't relevant, but the reason my parents divorced was due to infidelity on my mom's end. And it wasn't just a one-time thing, not that it matters, even if it had been. But my mom always believed my dad should have just forgiven her. I admit it was a low blow for me, and the conversation spiraled into an argument from there, with both of us saying some not-so-kind things to each other. Eventually, I decided the conversation was over because we were just going around in circles and heading into yelling territory. I told her to leave and said I'd try talking to her again when we'd both calmed down. As she was leaving, she said this: "I hope you're not as cruel as your father." I'm typically not an angry person, but this infuriated and hurt me deeply. I lived 50-50 between my parents after the divorce. They both made sure I had everything I could need or want. But my mom always felt like her situation and struggles were undeserved. She believed my dad should have forgiven her for everything, and that attitude never changed. Cheaters always think they deserve forgiveness. I didn't say anything when she left. I just blocked her number and social media accounts. And then I cried. It hurt so much to realize that my own mother cared more about the girl who hurt me than about her own daughter. She realized pretty quickly that I had blocked her. The next day, she showed up again, but my dad told her I didn't want to talk to her, which was true, and that she had to leave. It took her about half an hour of standing outside before she finally left. Over the next few days, she kept trying to reach me through other people. But I stayed silent. The Friday after my post, I decided I felt calm enough to talk to my mom and unblocked her. We spoke over the phone, but it wasn't as emotional as I expected. It was mostly her apologizing, saying she was wrong for trying to force me to forgive Nikki. She promised to respect my decision. But, of course, she tried to suggest that I think about it again. I very firmly told her that I was not forgiving Nikki. She responded with a simple, "Okay." Things between us didn't feel the same anymore. I couldn't bring myself to be as chatty with her as I used to be. And it didn't help that she kept giving me updates about Nikki. The first time she did this, she told me Nikki had been put on a 72-hour psych hold, assessed, and eventually released. I told her I didn't want any updates on Nikki's situation. I made it clear that I wouldn't stop her from checking in on Nikki herself, but I didn't want to be involved. She complained, saying she thought I would want to visit Nikki. That was when I had to put my foot down. I threatened to block her again if she kept pushing. That finally made her stop, at least for a little while. Things were quiet for a couple of weeks. I thought my mom had finally understood my boundaries. But, of course, that didn't last. She broke my boundary again by bringing Nikki up, telling me how Josh had stopped talking to her and how Nikki needed a shoulder to cry on. I reminded her that I didn't want to know anything about Nikki and made it clear that this was her last chance. I told her that if she brought Nikki up again, I would cut her out of my life completely. She complained, but eventually, she promised not to mention Nikki anymore. Honestly, I should have known better. My mom has never been great at taking no for an answer. Things stayed quiet for a while after that. My friends and I had all basically moved on from the drama. Some of them still occasionally talk to Nikki, but they've respected my boundary and never bring her up around me. I thought I could finally close this chapter of my life. But, of course, my mom wasn't done yet. Today, my mom called and asked if I wanted to grab lunch. I hadn't seen her in a while, so I thought, what's the harm? We agreed to meet at a Wetherspoons, a UK pub chain. When I arrived, I immediately saw who was sitting with my mom, Nikki, and her sister, Tammy. The moment Nikki saw me, she got up and tried to hug me. I raised my hand and took a step back. The look on her face was one of shock and hurt, as if she hadn't expected me to react that way. My mom immediately started scrambling for excuses. "It hurts to see you two fall apart like this. You were so close. I thought you'd forgive her by now. And my personal favorite, she made a mistake. She misses you." During this time, Nikki stayed quiet, and I could see Tammy glaring at me. I was boiling with anger and hurt. I honestly didn't think my mom would pull something like this. I wanted to leave and cry, but I forced myself to stay calm. I looked Nikki dead in the eye and said, "For someone who's made a mistake, you sure haven't apologized for it yet." Part 11. Nikki had this guilty look on her face and muttered something about me having her blocked and that she had no way to contact me. I wasn't having it. "Is that really all you have to say?" I asked. She just looked at me, confused and silent. I was done. I turned to leave. That's when Tammy decided to make things worse. Tammy started yelling after me, saying that I owed Nikki a second chance because of all the trauma I supposedly put her through. Meanwhile, Nikki was practically begging me to listen to her, pleading for a chance to talk. I had enough. I told them all to F off and to never contact me again. Then, I walked out. I managed to get out of there before Tammy could start a full-blown fight. I went straight home and sent my mom a text message. It was short and to the point. "Lose my number. You no longer have a place in my life." Then, I blocked her, again. After that, I just broke down and cried. It hurt so much to know that my own mother had done this to me. She knew how deeply Nikki's betrayal had cut me, and yet she still tried to force a reconciliation. My dad has been doing his best to comfort me, but honestly, it still hurts. So, that's where things are at right now. I've completely cut my mom out of my life. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was necessary for my peace of mind. I haven't heard from Nikki or Tammy since that day at Weatherspoons, and I'm hoping it stays that way. I've also stayed firm in not unblocking my mom. My dad has been incredibly supportive throughout all of this, reassuring me that I'm making the right choices for myself. It's been hard, though. Cutting off your own mother isn't something you ever expect to do. But I realize that if someone, even a parent, keeps bringing pain and drama into your life, you have to set boundaries for your own well-being. Commenter: why were you still in touch with your mother when she cheated on your dad? Ops response: because she was still my mom. I was a teenager when my parents divorced, and it was my father who encouraged me to maintain a relationship with her. Second update, 16 months later. Hey there, everyone. I'm the girl from the "my ex-best friend attempted to take her life" posts. I didn't think labeling my post like that really fit, but it's what most people remember me by. First, I want to apologize for taking so long to give an update. I also want to thank you all for your kind words. I haven't been able to reply to many messages, but I've read every single one, and I truly appreciate the support. This Christmas has been amazing. I spent it with my dad and the rest of my family. We had such a wonderful time together. On Boxing Day, I went out with my friends to party hard, and, trust me, I regretted it even harder the next day. But honestly, it was worth it. I'm in a much better place now than I was back in December 2023. That period of my life was rough, and it took a lot of effort to get to where I am now. Around Christmas and New Year's 2023, I was a mess. I wasn't in a good place mentally. I really needed to take a step back, focus on myself, and work toward getting to a healthier mindset. As of January 2024, I've been completely no contact with my mom. Unfortunately, I've seen her a few times since then, but it wasn't by choice. I've done my best to avoid talking to her on those occasions, and so far, I've managed to keep things civil by simply walking away. During Christmas 2023, my mom expected that I would be spending the holidays with her and her side of the family. Given the events that had taken place, there was absolutely no way that was happening. My dad made sure to tell her that, and as expected, she lost her mind. Leading up to Christmas, my mom refused to take no for an answer. She kept trying to convince my dad and me to spend the holidays with her. It got so bad that my dad and I decided to leave early and spend Christmas Eve at my paternal aunt's house. According to one of our neighbors, my mom showed up at our house early Christmas morning, expecting to catch us before we left. She was furious when she found out we were already gone. Thankfully, my aunt had recently moved to a new house, and my mom didn't know the address. Otherwise, I'm sure she would have shown up there, too. When we returned home on Boxing Day, we found parcels on our porch completely destroyed. There was even a Christmas card addressed to me. Inside the card was a letter from my mom, and it was vile. She wrote about how I was the worst daughter on the planet and how I had ruined the family. That letter broke me. I spent the entire New Year's period in tears, trying to process how my own mother could be so cruel. Cutting off your own mother is not an easy thing to do. It hurts deeply, and it's something I've wrestled with emotionally for a long time. I spent the first half of January 2024 trying to fix things with her. I thought maybe we could find some middle ground, maybe we could repair our relationship. But every attempt at reconciliation was one-sided. I was the only one compromising. I was the only one trying to make things better. Eventually, it hit me, she wasn't interested in changing. She wanted everything to go back to the way it was before, with me playing the role of the forgiving daughter who put up with everything. And I wasn't willing to do that anymore. So, I finally cut off all contact with her. It wasn't a decision I made lightly, but I knew it was the right one for my mental health and peace of mind. There's been more drama between us since then, but those are stories for another day. I might post about them on my Reddit page or in the comments of this post to keep this one from getting too long. In terms of Nikki, I've heard she's doing better. We haven't spoken since that disastrous lunch my mom set up. From what I've been told through mutual friends, Nikki has found a job and built a new circle of friends. Despite everything Nikki put me through, I'm genuinely happy to hear she's doing better. I don't wish harm on her, and I hope she continues to heal. But that doesn't mean I want her back in my life. I've made my peace with the fact that some people don't deserve second chances, not because they're bad people, but because they broke a trust that can't be repaired. Looking back, I'm proud of how far I've come. It wasn't easy, but I've worked hard to rebuild my life, set boundaries, and protect my peace. I've grown stronger and learned valuable lessons about self-respect and self-worth. This chapter of my life is closed. I'm no longer the same person who allowed toxic people to hurt me. I've moved forward, and I'm hopeful for what the future holds. Thank you all for your support. Your kind words helped me during some of my darkest days, and I'll forever be grateful for this community.